Alright guys, so there is the old lower control arm mount. Here is the new Garagistic. This is Del Rain. As you can see, you get, well, I mean, obviously, just look at all that wobble you get in there. This, you get absolutely none of that. That thing is super solid. Now, again, here, you have a ball joint. On these, I pressed in this Heim joint. So as you can see, it's a hemispherical joint by Magnus Racing Team. These things are badass. You press out the stock ones, and I went ahead and got new lower control arms just because all this stuff is a very long process. So whatever you can do and have with you to speed up the process, I definitely recommend to do. Now here is my chromoly tie rod. These are nice too, so you want to make sure you cinch this one down and torque it. And then we're going to go ahead and take these off. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove this nut right here. Then that will allow me to break the control arm loose from the steering knuckle. Now there's a better tool for this to actually break the ball joints loose. I definitely would not recommend doing it this way if you're going to reuse your lower control arms, but if not, just give them some wax. Boom. Take it out. Yeah, you're good to go. Now I can just pull that bolt off. Control arm is ready to get its top nut taken off. There's a 22 millimeter nut right there on this subframe. Not quite sure if you guys can see it. Well, it's actually on the top of the subframe, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. Okay, so I got that off. Now I'm gonna go on to these two 17 millimeters right here. So once you get those out, then this will kind of pop off. Bolt on that lower control arm. Now I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing a few whacks. Boom. Super easy. I love that tool actually. It's pretty awesome. Good to have a bunch of things to destroy different things, you know? So we are all ready to go throw this in the E30. Gonna go mount this up. First part we're gonna mount is this, and we're gonna have it attached to the control arm, and we're just gonna shove this in the hole. You must do this in this order. I tried doing it like here and doing this and like having this stuff all hooked up. That was not happening. I was trying it with all sorts of pry bars. The tolerances on this are just, I mean, look, you don't have any play. So it has no tolerance. So you need this in because this has a bit more wiggle because this actually moves a bit, and that's where you're gonna kind of make up your rooms. These kind of on here. Cool. That's pretty easy right there, and that looks good. I'm gonna grab my 22 mil up on top of the subframe, go ahead and tighten that up until I can squeeze the control arm up and get that all tight. Now onto the bump steer correction. So you can see here, this is where it is going to pick up on the back side of the knuckle right here, and then the front is going to be where the steering was before, which is this. So essentially this is being relocated. So this used to be the pickup point for my tie rod, but now it has been moved back with this hemispherical Heim. What that's going to do is it's going to quicken up the steering because, as you can see, you have less of a distance to travel. So that is going to give you more angle quicker. So it's actually going to increase the steering. I think it's by about 30% of how quick it is, plus the steering rack that I'm doing, which is going to be 2.7 turns instead of 4. This thing is going to be carving up the corners. Oh yeah, and we got, these are a 10K CaTuned competition coilover that I put in the front before I had 7K springs, and now these are 10s, and these are revalved to the competition spec. And in the rear are 12K, which are actual true coilovers. And yeah, that is freaking sweet. So this thing is completely changed up. These lined up with the front and rear portion. You put them in at the same time. Make sure that that gets pushed up. Now we can go ahead and just grab our little washer and our lock washer, and I'm just gonna put those on hand tight for now. I'll get back to this back spot, make sure that that little ball joint is kind of squished in there. Make sure you got your washer and your lock nut, put those on top. So now both of these are 19 millimeters, and like I said, they're a poly lock nut, so you're just gonna torque those down. I'm gonna get everything installed, and then I'm gonna take this little bolt out, and then I'm gonna put some blue Loctite on it, because that one needs some blue Loctite. Right here is a number 10 Allen, so you're gonna want a number 10 Allen. You wanna do some thread locker down on this one right here. as well. Thread locker on this one at the bottom here, and you should be all good. This one is a number 8 on the bottom here, so just using a number 8 Allen, you're gonna want to tighten that one up. Torque these down to the specs, and you are all good on the bump steer kit. A pretty easy install right here. It's gonna be really awesome. This is a great upgrade. Even if you have like a stock steering rack, this is gonna make a huge improvement on the quickness of turning and basically like how much steering lock you're gonna get. So this is a great little kit, especially if you have a lowered car. It's gonna correct that bump steer, correct that roll center, and make this thing freaking sick. So super excited to have that done. So I've removed the old power steering rack. As you can see, the differences here. The pickups are on that side for the hydraulic lines. On the new one, they are on the opposite side. Also, you're not gonna have as much height here in this little area. But the hoses, you know, for the most part look the same. This is also the outers for the tie rods. You can see it's backwards. These are E36 Z3 style, like this, whereas on the E30 they are inside diameter on this, where this is like an outside threaded piece. No clue how this angle is gonna work out, guys, but trust me, I'm just putting the rack in its spot. Not that exciting, but I know you're gonna want to see this. Ideally, that's where it's gonna go. I need to now bend these tabs back up, and we'll be back in business. So now I'm gonna use these 2 rack spacers. I'm gonna put those on top of the steering rack and try to put the factory, well, these aren't the factory bolts, these are from my red 46 sump armor. For now, I'm just gonna install a rack without the sump armor, because doing the sump armor just adds one extra annoyance to this rack, and we got to get everything lined up. I'll probably go back and put that on later. You guys probably will not see that on the video, but let's throw these on. Alright, I got that one, the nut on top. And like I said, I'll go back for this muchos lecherosos. I made some clearance for the power steering line. I reused the factory M21. I just had to bend this away from the steering linkage, and I flipped the banjo 180 degrees, so I just basically took it out and flipped it. So this is the low pressure line on the bottom here. On the top, more towards the steering rack, that is the high pressure line. I'm just gonna go ahead and wipe this up. I torqued all those down. I'm gonna go ahead and connect this hose back up for the low pressure line right here. Eventually I do want to probably swap out what I got going on here with some better hoses, but for now these will do. I'm gonna top off the power steering fluid. I got all the hoses hooked up. The steering is binding just a tad. I know I did all that grinding, but there's still a spot where it's, see how it gets tight right there? Kind of flick it, and then, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's obviously not good. You don't want to hear anything. So I got to get down below the car again with the Dremel and just grind out those little areas. But real quick, we're going to fill up the rack and bleed it out. I'm doing this first because I want to make sure I don't have any leaks and I don't have to take the rack off. Because if I have to take the rack off, then taking the steering knuckles off is not that big of a deal. Let's just fill this up. We're going to fill this up basically to the minimum line. Let it run for a minute. We're gonna let it suck all of this down. The steering rack is all in. As you can see, these spacers up on top of the steering rack right there, those went in pretty well. I was able to put this in just with a little bit of finagling. Now, as you can see here, I got the tie rods on here. I just have it kind of eyeball aligned right now. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some Loctite onto these 2 nuts right here, or these 2 bolts right here. Make sure those don't back out. And for now, I just basically have to do a string alignment. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm gonna throw it on the ground and do it with string. But I had some alignment plates coming from Hard Motorsports, but they didn't show up yet. So I'll probably be doing a video on that soon. Hopefully they get here tomorrow. And yeah, we're getting pretty far. All right, guys, so I got everything installed under here. You can see the tie rods are on there. They are not tight. I have to tighten them up. If I need to make any toe adjustments right now on the ground, I'm gonna do so I haven't tightened those. But you can see everything's on there. Went in awesome. Still need to put on the sump armor, like I said, but probably do that tomorrow or something, because it doesn't really sound that fun to me. right at the moment. And I want to try this stuff out before I do that. I rotated all my tires because I had quite a bit of camber wear on the fronts. Now I've swapped those, so I have less camber wear that were on the rear. And these tires are pretty much turfed, actually. They're pretty much to the wear bar. They've gotten quite a bit of abuse, so they've been fun. I've been dailying them as well. So, I mean, yeah, it's not all track miles or anything like that, but definitely some ripperoonage for sure. So let's throw this thing on the ground. And then we're gonna see what kind of angle we can get. Because before, if you guys remember, this is the way that this is how much angle we got out of the car, and we'll kind of compare it. All right, so I aligned the car using a string or a piece of yarn. This is a way you can do an easy alignment on your car. Maybe another time I'll do a video on it, but fairly straightforward. Basically, set up a piece of yarn like this, measure it, and try to get very, very precise to the amount of gap that you have per wheel. As you can see, this is like the same front and back, so that basically should be 0 toe. All right, so let's give this a go and see how much more angle we have. As you can see, I got a bit more angle, but I think what's going on, yeah, what I'm running into is I'm hitting my sway bar. See right there? My sway bar is basically hitting the wheel. So that is about as much angle as I can get. So you can see it's about, I don't know, probably about a couple more degrees. Let's put a piece of tape on the ground to kind of represent it a little better. Okay, so I hope that kind of represents how much more angle I have there. So basically, in order to get more angle, I gotta put spacers on this wheel. If I put spacers on the wheel, it's gonna kick it out more, and then it will allow me to get more steering lock. So this is basically maxed out right now, and that's all I'm gonna get. And then this way is pretty good too, so nice. So overall, the car is done. Now it's time to go drive it. Big shout out to Magnus Team Racing, Garagistic, and CaTuned for helping me out with the parts on this car. If you guys want to get any of those parts, I'm gonna put them down below. Magnus Team Racing is also going to be on CaTuned's website coming up here soon. By the time this video drops, it actually should be available on there. So it's really awesome if we can have a new CA vendor for those things. And man, this thing is sweet. Can't wait to go take it for a drive. It's gonna be like a whole new car. So talk to you guys soon, later, and wrench on.